do this episode without my glasses. So now, you know, even more like Russell. That Russell guy. I think that's what his name is. Anyway, so what's this week's all about on Villainous Time with me, Juton? We're going to be talking about a little fella who's from Michigan, who came to Canada, came to Alberta, and he was all like harassed by some people who were like strangely asked him if he'd been in a Calgary Stampede yet. Now, I don't know about you, but when someone asks me if I've been to somewhere yet, especially somewhere that might be fun, even if I don't know what it is, well, Stampede is generally, you know, associated with something pleasant to watch, at least. So, unless the officer was like, "You want to have a stampede with me and my wife? Is that what you blokes are at? Where's my gun? Almost what?" Because I mean, it's more than just the mate was like, "Where's my gun?" Because I mean, he's a cop in the state of Michigan, right? So I mean, like, why would you be all like, "Oh, I need my gun, concealed weapon"? Because I mean, like, what if they had concealed weapons too, right? Like, what if that was just a thing? I mean, you know, Alberta's kind of like cowboyish, you know. I'm sure they'd want all hard guns if they could afford it. And if, you know, our gun control was a little bit more lax, which, you know, that's fine. I don't really want it to be, really, not really. But if it does, I'm okay with that, because we're not really that crazy. I mean, we are. There was that gentleman who cut that guy's head off on the bus a couple of years back, but we're not that crazy. And I mean, like, what if you are a cop and you feel out of sorts with your gun? You should just never, when you're not a cop, go home, sit in front of the telly and just watch. And do nothing else if you're out of sorts. Because, I mean, you could go to the supermarket and be like, the cashier might look at you strangely because you purchased condoms for you and your wife to use. And he might look at you strangely and you might be like, "Oh my God, I'm going to shoot you, you're under arrest, I'm actually a police officer off duty, but I'm arresting you, citizen's arrest, because you looked at me funny, here's me gun and I'm going to prove it." What if everybody else just pulled out a gun and shot you? Because you're nuts. That's crazy. Just like if you're in No-So Park, right, and these two blokes approached you and were like, "Oh, you've been to Calgary Stampede?" Maybe they're a little bit tipsy, maybe they're just a little bit bewildered themselves as to finding two weird people in the park in such a strange area, you know? Maybe they were, you know, just walking out the loo and the two guys were caught off guard and were like, "Oh, look at this, what you're doing here?" And they were like, "I don't know what you're doing here. Have you been to the Stampede yet?" And then the officer was like, "I ain't never been to no Stampede. I ain't going. Where's me gun? Oh, I'll put it on you, you cheeky buggers." So you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like it's that weird of an incident. It's weird that you feel out of sorts without a gun in it. Because that's pretty regular. I mean, if you're a cop, you're probably trained in some physical manner of force, right? So I mean, you shouldn't have to be like, "Where's me gun?" Unless you're one of those coppers that's a donut, right? Because you're beaten, right? So I mean, like, at that point, you should probably want a gun as a cop, because you ain't got nothing else, right? I mean, sure, maybe you could take a few extra body shots than the rest of us, unless you get really good, can you beat? But really, you should not try and be a cop. If you're that, if you've got that mentality, I really don't want you as a police officer, or even really in my country, because that's just weird. You feel out of sorts with a gun, and you want everyone, because I mean, at this point, you want to be able to carry your gun concealed, but is that as a cop in a foreign country, or is that just as a citizen, so that way everybody can carry guns? Because I mean, we've already gone over that scenario, and that doesn't work out well, because when you come out the loo, and the guys were like, "Oh, have you been to the Calgary Stampede?" Because they didn't know what else to say, because you just walk out of the loo with your wife. The same loo. Yeah? It's kind of weird, right? If you were like, "Oh my goodness, where's me gun?" And they'd be like, "Oh my goodness, this guy can't be a cop. He's too crazy. Let's shoot him." And then they shoot you. Right? I mean, it doesn't work out that in that scenario. Really, carrying a gun doesn't really work out in any scenario you film it, unless you're really quick on the figure and you shoot them both in the kneecaps or in the hands. But you gotta be a perfect shot. And since, you know, you were talking about carrying a gun instead of using physical force, you're probably a donut, which means you probably would just be the type of guy that would go for the gun. So yeah, that's that. And it's just weird. You just go home and complain about your own country. We really don't. I don't want to. So yeah. But thank you so much for stopping by for Villainous part 1 this week. I'll be right back with part 2. Something a little bit more fun. Alright. Bye.